Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by asking you a powerful question. What if I told you that you could defeat your greatest enemy without ever lifting a finger? What if I told you that the strongest people in history never wasted their energy on petty battles, but instead mastered the art of strategic victory? Too many of us are fighting unnecessary wars. Wars of words, wars of emotions, wars of bitterness. But what if I told you that your greatest revenge is not in fighting back, but in outgrowing, outshining, and outlasting your enemies? Today, I will reveal to you the secrets of kings, leaders, and visionaries, how they conquered their adversaries without ever engaging in battle. By the time you leave here today, you will never fight your enemy the same way again. You will no longer waste your energy on things beneath you. Instead, you will master the art of strategic victory, because true power is not in the battle, it is in the mind. History teaches us that the most powerful warriors are not those who engage in every fight, but those who choose their battles wisely. Look at the greatest leaders: Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. They did not fight with weapons, they fought with wisdom. They defeated their enemies without shedding blood. True victory is not in destruction, it is in transformation. When you truly understand your power, you don't waste it on distractions. A lion does not chase rats, it focuses on the hunt that truly matters. Your real enemy is not the person who hates you, criticizes you, or works against you. Your real enemy is how you think about them. If they can occupy your mind, they have already won. Your thoughts control your reactions. Your reactions determine your results. If you let your enemy dictate your emotions, you have already lost the war. Instead, rise above them. Let them see that their words, their actions, and their plans have no power over you. Influence is greater than opposition. You don't defeat your enemy by attacking them. You defeat them by making them irrelevant. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop responding to negativity, it loses power? The best way to destroy an enemy is to become so valuable that they cannot touch you. Let your growth, your excellence, and your vision make them obsolete. Your enemy feeds on your reaction. They want you to fight, to engage, to be distracted. The more you fight, the stronger they become. But if you learn to disarm them through silence, success, and self-control, you rob them of their power. The best revenge is not proving them wrong. It's living so well that their words no longer matter. You don't have to fight your enemy. You just have to win in life. There is nothing more painful for an enemy than watching you rise above their expectations. Joseph in the Bible didn't fight his brothers when they betrayed him. Instead, he became so successful that he ended up feeding the very people who once tried to destroy him. Success will make your enemies irrelevant. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Every time you react emotionally, you give your enemy control over you. Silence forces them to fight themselves. Learn to think before you react. Not every battle is worth fighting. Some battles are distractions. The real battle is within you. Will you rise above, or will you be dragged into unnecessary conflict? My friend, today I challenge you. Stop fighting battles that do not matter. Stop responding to people who are beneath your purpose. Stop wasting your energy on things that do not build your destiny. The greatest warriors do not waste their strength on weak enemies. The most powerful people are those who know when to stay silent and when to act with wisdom. Your enemy cannot destroy you unless you let them. But today, you are rising above. Today, you are taking control. And today, you will destroy your enemies, not by fighting them, but by outgrowing them. Walk in wisdom, walk in power, and let your success speak for itself. The greatest battles are won without a sword, because true power lies not in the ability to strike, but in the wisdom to render the enemy powerless without direct confrontation. History has shown that those who achieve lasting victories are not always the strongest warriors, but the most strategic thinkers. The greatest leaders of all time, the ones who changed the course of history, understood that the mightiest weapons are not those forged of steel, but those cultivated in the mind. A sword can wound the body, but wisdom conquers the soul. When a person understands this principle, they stop engaging in unnecessary battles. They stop responding to every insult, every attack, every false accusation. They realize that most battles are nothing more than distractions, meant to drain energy and shift focus away from the true mission. A lion does not chase rats, because it understands that its energy is better spent hunting greater prey. Master life itself. A king does not argue with every critic because he knows that his authority is proven not in words, but in the way he rules. Every time you engage in petty battles, you lose valuable time, energy, and focus that could be used to build something greater. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who shouts the loudest or wields the biggest weapon, but the one who influences without direct confrontation. Influence is more powerful than brute force because it changes the way people think. When you can change the mind, you control the action. This is why history remembers leaders who never raised a sword but led revolutions through ideas. They understood that if you shape the thinking of a person, you shape their entire life. Those who seek to fight with weapons often find themselves in endless wars, but those who fight with strategy win battles before they even begin. There is a reason why the most powerful kingdoms in history fell, not by external armies, but by internal corruption. Rome, once the greatest empire, was not destroyed by an enemy's sword, but by its own weakening from within. The same principle applies in life. If you want to destroy an enemy, you do not need to attack them directly. You only need to make them irrelevant. When you continue to grow, when you continue to evolve, when you rise above, those who once opposed you find themselves fighting against a shadow. They lose their power the moment they realize that nothing they do can stop your progress. Wisdom teaches that the best way to defeat opposition is to make it powerless by refusing to engage with it on its terms. There are battles that are won not by responding but by remaining silent. There are wars that are ended not by retaliation but by moving forward so powerfully that the enemy becomes insignificant. A person who rises in excellence soon discovers that they no longer have time for those who seek to pull them down. Their focus shifts from defense to advancement, from reaction to creation. The greatest victories in life come when you realize that your energy is your greatest asset. If you waste it on every battle, you will have none left for the war that truly matters. You must be selective with your fights. Ask yourself, is this battle leading me closer to my destiny? Or is it simply a distraction? If it is not leading you forward, then it is not worth your time. The person who understands this principle moves differently. They are not easily provoked, not easily offended, not easily drawn into meaningless conflict. They walk with a quiet confidence, knowing that true power is in control, not in chaos. Many people spend their lives fighting battles that do not matter, battles that drain them, battles that could have been avoided with a simple shift in perspective. But those who understand the power of strategic victory focus on elevation, not confrontation. They learn that it is not about proving themselves to others, but about fulfilling their purpose. They do not need to crush their enemies. They simply rise so high that their enemies can no longer reach them. Your mind is the battlefield because every victory or defeat in life first begins in the mind. Before a person wins a battle in the physical world, they must first win it in their thoughts. Likewise, before anyone is defeated, they have already lost within themselves. The greatest wars in history were not just fought on battlefields with swords and armies. They were fought in the minds of those who led them. Every great leader, every powerful individual, and every visionary understood that their mind was the real place of battle. If the enemy can control how you think, they can control your actions. If they can shape your beliefs, they can dictate your future. Many people think their greatest battles are against external forces, against people who oppose them, against critics, or against difficult situations. but in reality, their biggest enemy is within. It is the doubt that whispers, "You are not good enough." It is the fear that says, "What if you fail?" It is the insecurity that makes them shrink back when they should move forward. If a person loses the battle in their mind, they will never win in life. But if they conquer their thoughts, no external force can defeat them. This is why the most powerful weapon a person can have is control over their mind. When you guard your thoughts, you guard your destiny. When you allow negativity, fear and doubt to take root, you have already given the enemy an open door to defeat you. But when you discipline your thinking, when you refuse to entertain negative thoughts, when you train yourself to see possibilities instead of obstacles, you become unstoppable. History is full of stories of people who faced impossible odds, but overcame them because they refused to accept defeat in their minds. Ask life itself. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, but even in confinement, he did not allow his mind to be enslaved. He saw himself as free, and eventually, the world had to acknowledge what he had already believed. Martin Luther King Jr. faced death, threats, opposition, and resistance, but his mind was fixed on the vision of a future that others could not yet see. Every great achievement in history was first won in the mind before it became reality. But the opposite is also true. The strongest armies have lost wars because of fear. Entire empires have crumbled because of insecurity within their own ranks. A person can have all the talent, all the resources, all the opportunities in the world, but if their mind is weak, they will sabotage themselves before they ever succeed. A person who is ruled by fear will never take risks. A person who is controlled by doubt will never step into their true potential. This is why the greatest leaders spend more time mastering their thoughts than they do mastering their enemies. The enemy knows this truth. This is why the first thing a person faces when they are on the brink of greatness is not physical opposition, but mental warfare. The moment you decide to step into a new level, doubts will arise. The moment you set a goal, fear will try to stop you. The enemy does not need to attack you physically if he can plant the right thought in your mind. Because once you believe a lie, it will control your actions. But here is the key. You have the power to control what stays in your mind. You may not be able to stop negative thoughts from coming, but you can decide whether they take root. You can choose to reject fear, to silence doubt, to focus on victory instead of defeat. And the more you train your mind to think this way, the more you will realize that external battles no longer shake you. Because when your mind is unshaken, nothing in the world can move you. The power of influence over confrontation is one of the greatest weapons a person can possess. The strongest leaders, the most successful people, and the most impactful individuals in history did not always win by direct battle. They won by shifting the minds of those around them. Influence is more powerful than brute force because it changes the way people think. And once you control a person's thoughts, you control their actions. While confrontation may win a temporary victory, influence establishes a lasting legacy. Many people waste their energy trying to fight battles that could be won simply by changing the environment around them. They focus on proving themselves right instead of positioning themselves as the person others look up to. A man who constantly fights to defend his position will never be as powerful as the one whose presence alone demands respect. True power is not in reacting to your enemies, but in making them irrelevant through influence. Influence does not demand, it inspires. It does not force, it leads. Consider the greatest movements in history. They were not led by those who engaged in every argument or debate, but by those whose very lives became a message that others followed. Jesus Christ did not go to war with governments, yet his influence outlasted the greatest empires. Mahatma Gandhi did not pick up a weapon, yet his philosophy of nonviolent resistance changed an entire nation. Nelson Mandela did not take revenge on his enemies, yet his influence united South Africa. These men understood that power is not in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply your words and actions shape the hearts of others. Most people fail to understand this principle because they are too focused on winning the argument rather than winning the mind. Confrontation may silence a person temporarily, but influence changes their beliefs permanently. When you force someone into submission, they comply out of fear, but when you influence them, they follow out of conviction. This is why wise people do not fight every battle. They let their presence, their wisdom, and their character do the work for them. There is a reason why businesses spend billions of dollars on branding and marketing rather than direct sales tactics alone. It is because influence sells without confrontation. The companies that understand how to shape perception control the market. The individuals who understand how to shape environments control the room. The leaders who understand how to shape minds control the future. Influence is the ability to shift the way people think without needing to fight for their attention. Many people wonder why they are constantly facing opposition, always needing to prove themselves, and always in conflict. The reason is simple. They are trying to force their way into places that can only be entered through influence. When a person develops influence, doors open for them that force could never unlock. Their reputation goes before them, their character speaks louder than their words, and their impact outlives their presence. When you master the art of influence, you realize that you no longer need to defend yourself. Your results speak for you. Your integrity fights for you. Your success silences your critics. The most powerful individuals do not seek revenge. They rise so high that their enemies can no longer reach them. They do not fight for attention. They become so valuable that people seek them out. They do not waste time on meaningless arguments. They focus on building something so undeniable that their influence becomes unquestionable. Influence is greater than confrontation because it does not just defeat an enemy, it converts them. It does not just silence opposition, it makes it irrelevant. It does not just win a moment, it shapes the future. The wise do not waste time fighting unnecessary battles. They build such a strong presence that their enemies either fade away or join their cause. Influence does not fight to prove, it exists to transform. How to disarm your enemy without violence is a principle that requires wisdom, patience, and strategic thinking. Many people believe that the only way to defeat an opponent is through direct confrontation, retaliation, or overpowering force. But history and experience have proven that true victory does not always come through battle. It comes through making your enemy powerless without ever having to fight them. This is a strategy used by the greatest leaders, the wisest kings, and the most successful individuals who understand that energy wasted on unnecessary conflict is energy stolen from progress. The first way to disarm an enemy is to remove their ability to provoke you. An enemy thrives on your reaction. Their power is not just in their actions, but in how they can manipulate your emotions. The moment you react in anger, fear, or frustration, you have already given them an advantage. But when you remain unmoved, when you refuse to be provoked, you strip them of the very thing they were seeking, control over you. The wise understand that not every battle requires a response, and silence is often the most powerful weapon. When an enemy expects a reaction and receives none, they are left confused, frustrated, and powerless. The second way to disarm an enemy is to excel beyond their expectations. Many times, opposition arises because people want to see you fail. They expect you to be weak, to crumble under pressure, or to respond with the same negativity they give you. But when you focus on growth, when you elevate in excellence, when you become more successful, despite their efforts to bring you down, you make their attacks irrelevant. Nothing disarms an enemy faster than watching the person they tried to destroy rise above them. When Joseph in the Bible was betrayed by his brothers, he did not seek revenge. Instead, he rose to such a position of influence that he became the very one to bless those who once tried to harm him. Your progress is your greatest revenge. The third way to disarm an enemy is through wisdom and diplomacy. The most powerful leaders throughout history understood that they did not need to destroy their enemies. They needed to outthink them. Instead of engaging in direct conflict, they used strategy, influence, and intelligence to neutralize threats. Many wars have been won before they even began, simply because a wise leader knew how to outmaneuver an enemy without engaging in unnecessary bloodshed. When you learn to control the situation with wisdom instead of reacting with force, you disarm your opponent before they can strike. The fourth way to disarm an enemy is by mastering emotional control. The moment an enemy realizes they can no longer trigger fear, insecurity, or doubt in you, they lose power over you. Many people lose battles, not because they are weak, but because they allow their emotions to control their decisions. A person who is easily angered can be manipulated. A person who is easily discouraged can be stopped. But a person who has mastered self-control becomes untouchable. This is why the strongest warriors in history were often the calmest, because they understood that a clear mind is more powerful than a reckless reaction. The final way to disarm an enemy is to make them irrelevant.
The greatest battles in life are not won by fighting, they are won by outgrowing. There comes a point where your focus shifts so powerfully toward your purpose that your enemies no longer matter. You become so successful, so disciplined, and
so elevated in your thinking that their attacks no longer affect you. They become insignificant, not because they stopped attacking, but because you stopped noticing. True power is not in defeating your enemy. It is in making them powerless by refusing to engage in their games could never unlock. Mastering the art of patience is one of the most powerful ways to destroy your enemy without ever fighting them. Many people believe that victory belongs to the swift, to those who react quickly, to those who strike first. But history has proven that the true victors are not those who rush into battle, but those who know how to wait, observe, and act at the right time. Patience is not weakness, it is a weapon. It is the ability to see beyond the present moment, to understand that not every situation requires an immediate reaction, and to recognize that time itself can become your greatest ally. The most successful individuals do not make decisions based on emotions. They do not allow anger, frustration, or the heat of the moment to dictate their actions. Instead, they remain calm, collected, and strategic. They understand that most enemies destroy themselves when given enough time. A person who acts out of impatience will often expose their weaknesses, make careless mistakes, and ultimately sabotage their own plans. This is why patience is such a powerful tool. It allows you to watch as your enemies create their own downfall. You do not need to fight them. They will fight themselves. Consider nature. A lion does not chase every animal in the jungle. It does not waste its energy running after prey that is too fast or too small. Instead, it waits for the right moment. It watches, it observes, and when the time is perfect, it strikes with precision. This is the power of patience. It is knowing that you do not need to respond to every attack, every insult, every provocation. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone. The moment you master patience, you master control. Not only over yourself, but over every situation around you. Patience also reveals true intentions. When you remain still, when you do not react immediately, people expose themselves. An enemy who is in a hurry will make desperate moves. They will show their strategy. They will become careless in their attempts to manipulate you. But when you are patient, you can see through their schemes, recognize their weaknesses, and position yourself for victory without ever engaging in direct conflict. A person who lacks patience will always be at the mercy of those who possess it. Throughout history, the greatest leaders were not those who reacted impulsively, but those who knew how to wait. They understood that time exposes everything. Betrayal, deception, and dishonesty cannot hide forever. Eventually, those who work against you will reveal themselves. Eventually, those who plot against you will face the consequences of their own actions, and when that moment comes, you will not have to fight them, because they will have already lost. Patience is also a sign of strength. Weak people react immediately because they are controlled by their emotions. Strong people take their time because they are controlled by their vision. They are not moved by temporary situations. They are not distracted by short-term victories. They know that true success comes to those who endure, to those who remain steadfast, to those who do not allow frustration to dictate their decisions. Most people fail because they do not understand the power of waiting. They speak too soon. They move too fast. They make decisions in moments of frustration that they later regret. But the wise understand that time is always revealing. The person who betrayed you will eventually be exposed. The one who worked against you will eventually be removed. The opposition that seems so strong today will be nothing tomorrow. And when you understand this, you stop wasting energy on unnecessary battles. You stop trying to fight every enemy. Instead, you learn to wait, to watch, and to move only when the time is right. Patience is not about doing nothing. It is about preparing in silence, positioning yourself for the right moment, and allowing time to do the work that force cannot. The person who waits strategically always wins in the end, because while others are busy reacting, they are busy building. While others are fighting, they are rising. And while others are exhausting themselves in meaningless battles, they are securing a victory that cannot be taken away. The power of self-discipline is one of the most effective ways to destroy your enemy without ever fighting them. Many people believe that victory comes from overpowering others, from engaging in conflict, or from proving their strength through confrontation. But the truth is, the greatest victories in life are not won through physical battles. They are won through self-mastery. The person who has control over themselves cannot be controlled by anyone else. When you master your mind, your emotions, your habits, and your responses, you become untouchable. Your enemy loses power the moment they realize they cannot provoke, manipulate, or distract you. Our games could never unlock. Most conflicts in life are not external battles. They are internal struggles. People fail not because of their enemies, but because of their own lack of discipline. They give in to anger and make foolish decisions. They allow distractions to pull them away from their purpose. They react to every criticism and waste their energy on meaningless arguments. But the person who practices self-discipline understands that true power is in restraint. They know that not every situation requires a reaction, and not every battle is worth fighting. Instead of responding to negativity, they focus on growth. Instead of engaging in petty conflicts, they build something greater. Self-discipline means controlling your emotions. The person who can remain calm in the face of provocation is always in control of the situation. When an enemy tries to anger you, it is not because they want a fight. It is because they want control over your emotions. The moment you react in frustration, you have already given them what they wanted. But when you remain unmoved, when you do not allow external forces to dictate your internal state, you strip them of their power. They become frustrated because they realize they cannot shake you. And in that moment, they have already lost. Discipline also means controlling your habits. Many people fail not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they lack discipline in their daily lives. They are inconsistent in their work, distracted by entertainment, and easily swayed by temporary pleasures. They waste their energy on things that do not bring value, while those who are disciplined rise above them. The most successful individuals in history were not necessarily the most gifted, but they were the most disciplined. They woke up early, worked when others were distracted, trained when others were resting, and remained focused when others lost their way. A disciplined person does not seek revenge. They outgrow their enemies. They do not waste time proving themselves. They let their results speak for them. When you master yourself, you do not need to fight anyone because you naturally rise to a level where your enemies can no longer reach you. The student who is disciplined in their studies does not need to argue about intelligence. They prove it through excellence. The entrepreneur who is disciplined in their work does not need to convince people of their success. It becomes obvious. The leader who is disciplined in their vision does not need to defend their reputation. it becomes unquestionable. Tracked you or games could never unlock. Most people are destroyed not by their enemies, but by their own lack of control. They sabotage their own progress through laziness, bad decisions, and emotional reactions. They lose not because someone overpowered them, but because they never mastered themselves. But the person who cultivates self-discipline becomes unstoppable. They do not let distractions pull them away from their purpose. They do not allow negative people to shift their focus. They do not waste energy on proving themselves to those who do not matter. They remain committed, consistent, and focused, knowing that discipline will take them further than talent, strength, or connections ever could. The enemy fears the person who cannot be manipulated. They fear the one who cannot be provoked. They fear the individual who remains focused no matter what is thrown at them, because they know that such a person is unstoppable. A disciplined mind is a fortress, a disciplined life is a weapon, and a disciplined spirit is a force that no enemy can conquer. In the end, the greatest victories in life are not won through physical battles, loud arguments, or acts of revenge. They are won through wisdom, strategy, patience, and self-mastery. The person who understands how to defeat their enemy without ever fighting them is the one who rises above the need for conflict. They do not waste their energy proving themselves. They do not engage in battles that do not serve their purpose. Instead, they focus on growth, influence, discipline, and patience, allowing time, success, and wisdom to dismantle their opposition. Your enemy does not need to be confronted. They need to be outgrown. They do not need to be fought. They need to be made irrelevant. When you control your mind, when you master your emotions, when you refuse to be provoked, and when you remain focused on your purpose, your enemies will eventually fade away. Because the truth is, those who rise high enough will one day look around and realize there is no one left to fight. So do not waste time on unnecessary battles. Do not let distractions pull you from your destiny. Do not allow your enemies to control your emotions, your thoughts, or your actions. Instead, rise, elevate, master yourself, and you will master every situation around you. And in the end, when your success speaks for itself, you will see that the most powerful way to destroy your enemy is not through battle, but by becoming someone they can never defeat, act you, or games could never unlock.